Hi all. In the previous video we had learned about what are called Bayesian networks, which are basically directed acyclic graphs which bring together probability theory and graph theory to solve important problems in machine learning using the generative approach. So in Bayesian networks, if you remember, we describe the causal relationships between various features using a DAG, and then we have various tables which tabulate the probability of transition between different possibilities. So now in your Bayesian network, you require two things. One is the structure of the network, and the second thing that you require are the probability values of the various possibilities, and estimating that requires observability of your data. So if you want to estimate those probability values, you need to be able to observe all the data values that you have. And depending on how much you know about the structure and how much observability is available to you, there are different kinds of methods that one has to use to estimate the Bayesian networks and their probabilities. So when it comes to the structure and observability, there are various possibilities. So you could know the structure completely and have full observability of the data, in which case you use a maximum likelihood estimation method and do your job, which is pretty straightforward. But there are many cases in real practical life where the structure and the observability are not fully available. So for example, the structure could be known, but observability could only be partial, that you can see some part of the information which is available, but the other part could be not available. In that case, you have to use other algorithms, and the most popular one of them is called expectation maximization, which is what we are going to learn in this video. Then your structure could be unknown and your observability could be full, in which case you have to search through the space of all possible models, which means that you have to try out all the various possible structures of your Bayesian network which could possibly explain your given data, and this particular problem is actually NP hard, because searching through the model space is very computationally expensive. And the hardest of all is when your structure is also unknown and your observability is also partial, in which case you have to use a combination of expectation maximization and a search through model space. So in this video, we are not going to worry about how do you search through model space, but what we are going to instead focus on is this expectation maximization algorithm and understand how this works through a very simple example. So now let's see what this expectation maximization algorithm is. In short form, it is called the EM algorithm. So let's take a simple example. So let's say you have two coins whose biases, by biases I mean the probability of heads, let that be theta A and theta B. So A is one coin, B is another coin, and theta A is the probability of heads of coin A and theta B is the probability of heads of coin B. And your job now is to estimate what theta A and theta B are given some amount of data. So what data is available to you is that the following experiment is performed. So you pick a coin at random, toss it 10 times and count the number of heads. So this will give you your record X, which is a collection of different values. So let's say you did this, you picked up a coin once, you tossed it 10 times, you counted the number of heads. That will give you your number X1. Then again you picked up another coin and you did the coin toss 10 times, counted number of heads. That will give you X2. Now let's say you did this process 5 times. So you will have 5 different values for the number of heads. And now let's say your Z is the information that which coin it was. So you have Z1, Z2, Z3, Z4 and Z5, where your X1, X2, X3, X4, X5 are integers which can take values between 0 to 10. It will be 0 when there is no head in that particular set of coin tosses, and it will be 10 when all the tosses turned out to be heads, and something in between. And these Z values represent which coin it was. So Z1 could be A or B, Z2 could be A or B, and so on. So now if this full information was available to you, then estimating theta A and theta B would be fairly straightforward. How that is so? That suppose we know these values. So let's say suppose your Z was A, B, A, B, which means that the first, second and the fourth time you chose coin A, and the third and fifth time you chose coin B. So in that case, what will be theta A? Theta A will be x1 plus x2 plus x4 divided by 30, and theta B will be x3 plus x5 divided by 20, and that solves your problem. Done. But in real life, in many problems, what happens is that this information about Z is not available. So you know the values of capital X, but you do not know which of the coins was chosen for each of the coin toss. And that is where your expectation maximization algorithm comes in, because it gives you a nice and robust way to estimate the values for theta A and theta B even when the Z is unknown. So let us first look at a simpler approach to estimate theta A and theta B, and then we will look at the approach of expectation maximization. So let's say that your capital X is 5, 9, 8, 4, 7, and your Z is unknown. You do not know what your Z is and you want to estimate what your theta A and theta B is. So what we are going to discuss is an iterative approach. So you start with the initial value, make some estimates, and then reiterate till you converge to something. So let's begin by assuming that theta A at the 0th iteration is 0.6. These numbers have been picked at random, and your theta B is equal to 0.5. So this is just a guess. So what you do now is that you estimate the probability that x1 was generated, assuming that the coin chosen was the coin A. So what would this be? Now x1 is equal to 5, which means that there were 5 heads out of 10 tosses. So this probability is 10C5, and now because we know that the coin was A, or rather we are assuming that the coin was A, this is 0.6 to the power 5 multiplied by 0.4 to the power 5, which is equal to 0.2. Similarly, you can do this same calculation assuming that the coin chosen was B. So P of x1 given B is equal to, using a similar formula, will come out to be 0.25. And now we can do the other calculations also. So P of x2 given A, again using a similar formula, will turn out to be 0.04. P of x3 given A will turn out to be 0.12. I'm not doing all these calculations because I assume that you can do it very easily. P of x4 given A is equal to 0.11 and P of x5 given A is equal to 0.22. We can do the same computation assuming that the coin chosen was B. So P of x2 given B is equal to 0.0098. P of x3 given B is equal to 0.044. P of x4 given B is equal to 0.205. P of x5 given B is equal to 0.117. So what did we do over here? We started by assuming some value for the theta A and theta B, and then using that we computed the probabilities of the 5 outcomes, assuming that A was chosen and then assuming that B was chosen. Now what do we do? Now look at this. So here P of x1 given A is 0.2 and P of x1 given B is 0.25. So what this means is that this outcome x1 is more likely to have happened because coin B was chosen. So here we discard x1 slash A and we choose x1 slash B. What about the next case? In the next case, your 0.04, which is x2 slash A, is bigger than 0.0098. So now we say that the outcome x2 was more likely because coin A was chosen. So here we discard x2 slash B and we choose x2 slash A. In the next case, again 0.12 is bigger than 0.044. So again we choose x3 slash A and we discard x3 slash B. Then in the next one, x4 slash B is bigger. So we choose this value. Then in the next case, x5 is bigger. So then we choose this value and we discard the other one. So what we are saying in this particular iteration is that it is likely that the second, third and the fifth iterations of our experiment were done using coin A, and the first and the fourth iterations were done using coin B. So now we use this information to update our estimate of theta A and theta B. So how do we do that? So here x2 is equal to 9, x3 is equal to 8 and x5 is equal to 7. So our theta A1 will be 9 plus 8 plus 7 divided by 30. So what does that become? So we have theta A in the first iteration is equal to 9 plus 8 plus 7 divided by 30, which is equal to 0.8. Similarly, you have theta B in the first iteration, which comes from x1 and x4. So that is equal to 5 plus 4 divided by 20, which is equal to 0.45. So this is the algorithm. So this is now the first iteration. So what you do is that now you remove this 0.6 and 0.5 using 0.8 and 0.45. You again estimate these x1 by A, x2 by A and so on. and you estimate x1 by b, x2 by b, and so on, and then again pick up whichever is higher, calculate theta a and theta b for the second iteration, and keep doing this till you reach convergence, which you are definitely going to reach. It may take a long time to reach convergence, but you are going to reach convergence. So now this is a simple approach and this is useful. But one problem with this is that you are completely throwing away a part of the information. So you are using only partial information that is available to you in order to do these iterative estimates. What the expectation maximization algorithm does is that it uses a scheme which is similar, but it uses both the information which is available to you and does not throw anything away. So how does it do that? So let's write this information in a tabular format to understand how the expectation maximization algorithm works. So you have your xi values in one column. Then you have your probability of xi given A. Then you have your probability of xi given B. And then you will have some other values which I am going to introduce shortly after filling up the known values. So in the x that we have assumed, your xi is 5, 9, 8, 4, 7, and your xi by A is 0.2, then 0.04, then 0.12, 0.11, and 0.22. And for P of xi comma B, you have 0.25, 0.0098. So you can verify for yourself that these are the exact same values that we had calculated on the previous page. Then you have 0.205 and you have 0.12. So in the previous algorithm, which was a simplistic version of EM in some sense, what we did is that we picked up the values which were larger. So here we picked up this one, and then we picked up this one, and for xi comma A we picked up this one, and the last one. But instead of completely discarding the smaller value, what you can do is that you can compute the weights corresponding to each of these probability values. So that is where the expectation maximization algorithm differs from the simplistic approach. So here you have the weight of A for I and the weight of B for the ith value. So how do you calculate the weights? So the weights are nothing but these probability values normalized with respect to these two values. So WAI will simply be 0.2 divided by 0.2 plus 0.25. So if you do that computation, what you will get is 0.45 and this will be 0.55. So the sum of these two weights is exactly equal to 1. Then you have 0.80 and you have 0.20. Then you will get 0.73 and then you will get 0.27. Here you will get 0.36, 0.64, and then you will get 0.65, and then you will get 0.35. So once again, let me remind you, how did we get this one? So this is nothing but P of xi slash A divided by P of xi slash A plus P of xi slash B, and this is nothing but 1 minus WAI. So if you have many more coins, you need to again expand this table accordingly, but the basic principle still works irrespective of how large your data set is or how many different features that you have. So now what do we do with these weights? So what we do is that in the previous case, we computed the theta A for the first iteration using the values where the x slash a was higher. So we took 9 plus 8 plus 7 and we divided that by 30. In the expectation maximization algorithm, we are not going to discard anything, but rather what we are going to say is that the theta a for the first iteration is 5 into 0.45 plus 9 into 0.80 plus 8 into 0.73 plus 4 into 0.36 plus 7 into 0.65 divided by sum of all these weights multiplied by 10. 10 because these numbers are for 10 tosses. So that is how we get our estimate for theta AI. So essentially what we have is that our theta A for the first iteration is equal to summation of xi times wai for the 0th iteration divided by 10 into summation of wai for the 0th iteration. And similarly, you can get theta b 1 also. So if you do this computation, what you will find is that this is 0.712, and similarly your theta b for the first iteration will turn out to be 0.583. So this is the first iteration only, and if you do this many times, this algorithm is guaranteed to converge. Now whether this converges to the global minima or not, that is hard to say. That depends on whether your landscape has a global minima or not, and whether your initial guess was correct or not. But what is definitely guaranteed is that you are definitely going to converge to something. This algorithm is not going to go on forever, and expectation maximization algorithm is a very powerful method, and we are going to see more applications of this for more advanced algorithms in future videos, especially the one on Gaussian mixture models. But this is still the basic idea on which the advanced applications of expectation maximization are based. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this algorithm is primarily used when the data observability is limited. So in this case, for example, we had the values for x, but we did not know which coin each of those x corresponded to. And this is classically the problem of unsupervised machine learning. So far we have seen videos on supervised machine learning where you had a set of inputs, you had the corresponding outputs, and your job was to find a approximation to the functional relationship between x and y, or the input and the output. But here you have the inputs but you do not have the outputs, which is what unsupervised learning is all about. So here, using a certain algorithm, we have been able to estimate what those labels or what those outputs should be corresponding to a given input value. So this is a very simple algorithm but a very powerful algorithm in the domain of unsupervised learning, and in the near future we are going to see more videos where we learn other concepts of unsupervised learning and see how we can classify given data even without knowing what the corresponding labels are.